Hey everyone, it's Jason. On today's episode of the Thermostat with Jason Barger, I'm taking us into the room from last year's Thermostat Cultures live event that I host each year in Columbus, Ohio. One of my guests at last fall's event was my friend Damon West. His personal story from a life of crime to prison to inspiring others in the world to be a coffee bean will not only touch your heart, but inspire you for the next leg of your journey. To learn more about the next event and to save the date on your calendar, visit thermostatcultureslive.com. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Welcome back to the Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced the best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back, breathe in good oxygen, and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. All right, we've set the stage for today, and now I want to invite up our first in-person guest in just a second, and I want us to have a dialogue that I think is going to, this idea of being a catalyst, this idea of a ripple effect, this idea of marrying some of the concepts that we're talking about this morning, I think are going to stimulate our thinking in some other great ways. Calibrating that thermostat starts with the way that culture, as you know, I talk about all the time, is dynamic, which means it's always changing. And it's shaped by the way we think, act, and interact. And so it starts with the way that we think. The mindset that we bring to how are we approaching what we're going to do. And so I'm excited to bring up our first guest today. I've been so fortunate to invite some friends and some wonderful voices over the years. Amazing people that have joined me here, and excited for today as well. Damon West gets recognized as the coffee bean guy, which we'll talk more about what that means in just a second. He's a 3-time bestseller selling author. His story, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, is captivating and inspiring and amazing. USA Today has named him one of the most in-demand keynote speakers in the country. We have been connected by a number of people over the last couple of years. I think John Gordon was one of those people that mentioned us to each other. Coley O'Brien at Wendy's, after I'd spoken at Wendy's a number of times. I think Damon spoke there, and then he said, dude, you guys just got to know each other. And so we've had a cup of coffee. The coffee bean guy and I have had a cup of coffee together. We've had some Zooms, and now I'm super excited. We spoke at a conference, both as speakers at a conference not too long ago. Now I'm excited to share him with you all. So would you help me welcome Damon West?
All right, man. Hey, what's going on, man? Hey, man, how's it going, Brent?
Glad you're here.
Man, it's so good to see Howard, because I got a friend named John Perry that connected me to Howard years ago.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's a good segue. You know, he's Starbucks. I'm the coffee bean guy.
That's right.
So we got a lot in common.
We'll make that connection here. I want to reintroduce you to him here in a minute. But,
how y'all doing? It's good to be here, y'all.
So, Damon, first, before we start chatting and learn about what this coffee bean thing is, which, by the way, there's so much synergy between that and this idea of the thermostat and intentionally shaping. Before we get into that, tell us something about you that we wouldn't know. Like, what's beyond the stuff we're going to talk about today? What's something that like we ought to know?
Yeah, this is good. So, and it's more something I'll answer at the end, but I'm going to throw a teaser out there to you. I found out with the story of the coffee bean, the message of the coffee bean, which you're going to hear in a little while, how I first learned that. I've only recently found out one of the big reasons why it was given to me. And it wasn't about me. It was about what I was supposed to do for somebody else. Like there was a mission that I was supposed to go out on, but I didn't fully understand that, because sometimes in life we can think it's about us and we get so wrapped up in that. But only recently, in the last couple of years, have I found out what one of the main purposes was for the coffee bean, and it wasn't even anything to do with me. It has to do with somebody else. So
I love it.
I found that person, though. I found the person who was supposed to be about it. It's so wild. Y'all going to hear the story. Y'all, I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.
But I believe human beings have always learned from storytellers, right?
That's
Lessons,
the way we
morals,
learn.
principles, entertainment. And a good storyteller has great elements, right? And my story has the element of the underdog journey, the comeback story. We love when the underdog wins, we win.
So tell us a little bit about that, because let's bring people into that story and bring. I'll take us to that point in time. You're in college and paint the image for what was happening in college and those years that I would say, again, for framing it up today, were catalyst moments for you that first the ripples started to take you in one direction, and then a catalyst moment, which is probably that coffee bean that you're going to describe what that means, was a catalyst that started a ripple effect going in a different direction. Share a little bit about that.
And this is good, a catalyst moment. We'll start off with September 21st, 1996. And so I'm a redshirt sophomore in college football, which dates me. I'm 50. In fact, I found out my birthday is October 21st, 75.
Buddy,
right
October
by you,
8th.
man. Yeah,
There we
man.
go. Let's
Just
go.
your wife was telling me that a while ago.
Let's go.
We both just turned 50.
Libras.
So, yeah. So the catalyst event, September 21st, 1996. We were playing Texas A&M that day. I'm a starting quarterback. I'm 20 years old on a Division I college football team. And man, in Texas, football is everything. We got this little thing in Texas called high school football. You ever heard of that? Friday Night Lights, right? So I'm at 20 years old. I'm a starting quarterback on a Division I team. And man, I thought I had arrived, man. My head was just gigantic at this point. But life has a way of giving us these days, I'll call fork in the roads. And fork in the roads are those catalyst moments, right?
Yep.
I'm driving my team down the field against the Aggies. Third play of this game, I go down with a career-ending injury. And I'm never going to play college football again. I'm 20 years old. My life has changed. And my identity was wrapped up in being a college football player. I didn't have another identity. And so I get up to this fork in the road in life, and football is gone. And, well, I got into drugs at that point. And that's, I think a lot of people get into substance abuse because they can't deal with life on life's terms. It's one of the hallmarks of being an addict. And another thing about being an addict is addicts give up their goals to meet their behaviors. It's like the very definition of addiction, by the way. When you give up your goals to meet a behavior, you're an addict. So at 20 years old, I started getting into cocaine, ecstasy, the pain pills, pretty functional addict. I graduate college. I move off to Washington, D.C. I work in the United States Congress, and I work for a guy running for president of the United States. And in 2004, I moved back to Dallas to be a stockbroker for one of the biggest Wall Street banks in the world, UBS, United Bank of Switzerland.
Yep.
And it was at this job as a broker in 2004 that my life and the lives of so many other innocent people are forever changed. I was passed out asleep at work one day. This other stockbroker comes in, he sees me sleeping, he wakes me up, he's visibly shaken. Damon, wake up, man. You can't sleep on this job. The markets are open. You're messing with people's money. They'll fire you if they catch you sleeping here. He said, come on down to the parking garage. I've got something that'll pick you up. So I follow this guy to the parking garage that day. We get into a sports car. He hands me a glass pipe with crystal rocks in it. I've never seen a glass pipe before. I'm like, man, what is that? He said, Damon, just relax. It's crystal meth. You're going to love this stuff. Truer words never been spoken. It's the most evil, most destructive.
Just relax.
Yeah. You're going to love this stuff. I mean, like, crystal meth is the most addictive thing I've ever touched in my life. It's made in a lab. It's made to get you hooked. And I smoked it one time, instantly hooked just like that. And then I gave away everything for that drug. My job, my home, my car, my savings account, my family, my tethering to God. In 18 months, I go from working on Wall Street to living on the streets. And I'm homeless now, living in dope houses. I become a criminal. And it was petty crimes at first, y'all. I was shoplifting, breaking into cars, breaking into storage units. Then it escalated to the very serious crime of home burglary. Now, burglary is a very serious crime because when I broke into my victims' homes, I didn't just steal property from my victims. I stole something way more valuable from my victims. I stole their sense of security. And that's something they can't get back, Jason. I can't give it back to them. I can't fix what I did. So these burglaries go on for about 3 years. And I put together my own burglary crew. I became the quarterback again, this time of a very bad team. I was the ringleader of a bunch of other meth addicts breaking into houses all over Dallas. The burglaries were called the Uptown Burglaries for the uptown neighborhood of Dallas where they first started. And I was known as the Uptown Burglar. And on July 30th, 2008, a Dallas SWAT team finally caught up with me and took me down. Dramatic SWAT team raid. So they arrest me that day. They take me to Dallas County Jail. They set my bond at $1.4 million, which is an impossible bond to reach. And there's about 9,000 people in Dallas County Jail. It's one of the biggest jails in America, right? It's like a city when you walk in this place. 10 months later, I go to this trial. The date is May 18th, 2009. Jason, on May 18th, 2009, I'm standing in front of a jury in Dallas. And the jury, these 12 men and women, they just sat through a 6-day criminal trial. And 6 days of trial is a long trial for crimes where no one got hurt.
Yeah.
And it means the evidence of my guilt is overwhelming. They got me dead to rights. And the crime that I'm standing trial for, it's not a burglary case anymore. It's an organized crime case. It's RICO. And I'm the boss of the organization. And at the end of that long 6-day RICO trial, the jury went to deliberate, and they were gone for 10 minutes in deliberation. Bad sign, man. Bad sign. They brought me back in the courtroom, and the judge read my sentence out loud. He said, Damon Joseph West, you are hereby sentenced to 65 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. 65 years in Texas is a life sentence in Texas, y'all. The jury gave me life that day. Now, right after the trial was over, my mom and my dad get one last visit with me. My mom is explaining to me that, you owe this debt to society because you did the crimes, but you owe a debt to your dad and I too, because she's like, we gave you all the opportunity, love, and support to be anything you wanted to be in life, and this is how you repaid us. She said, it's not going to work. So here's the debt you're going to pay to us. When you go to prison, you will not get in one of these white hate groups, one of these Aryan Brotherhood type of gangs, because you're scared you're the minority in there. She said, that's not going to work. You were never raised to be a racist. You're not starting that now. She said, you will not get any tattoos while you're inside that prison. Y'all see any ink on me? Man, I spent almost 10 years in a level 5 maximum security prison. Y'all, level 5, it's the highest security level there is. Most of my time is spent living with lifers, the most dangerous part of prison there is. No ink and no tattoos. And let me tell you something, Jason. These guys in prison, they want to tattoo every inch of your body in the joint. These guys were relentless, man. They hit me up constantly. They're like, Wes, let me put a tattoo on you, man. Man, I tell these guys the same thing every time. I'm like, dude, I can't do it, man. My mom said no. It's like, it's all I had, y'all, was the truth.
Chris just nodded his head, by the way. We'll get to Singleton later.
Yeah.
He just was like, yeah, all right.
But what was interesting, too, about the culture inside of a prison, and I know people are fascinated with prison, right? We love prison stuff in America. Well, I'm going to take you through the prison in a second. What was interesting about the prison culture is those guys, they all gave me a pass on the tattoo thing because it came from my mother. Because moms are special people, y'all. A little known fact about prison. The busiest visitation day of the year in prisons all over America. Mother's Day. Oh, yeah. At every prison in America, on every Mother's Day till the end of time, the line's out the gate every single Mother's Day because you can't stop a mother from getting to her child. So the guys gave me a pass, but my mom didn't give me a pass. She said, no gangs, no tattoos. Come back as the man we raised, or don't come back at all. I don't know I'm going to keep this promise, man. I've never been to prison before. I don't know anybody's been to prison before. They bring me back to my pod in Dallas County Jail. I got 2 months before the prison bus comes to get me, frantically asking every guy that's been to prison before, how am I going to survive? What am I going to do? And man, Jason, every guy I'm talking to is telling me the same thing. You got to get into a gang. You can't survive without a gang. Except for this one guy, this older black man named Muhammad. Now, Muhammad's a career criminal, y'all. Muhammad's been in and out of prison his entire life. But he's the most positive guy I've ever met in my life. This guy had a smile on his face everywhere he went. And every morning, Muhammad comes to my cell to check on me. So this one morning in 2009, he comes up to my bunk. He's got a cup of coffee in his hands, had a smile on his face. He said, Wes, I've been watching you, man. I've been watching how you're dealing with these knuckleheads and these dummies talking about you got to get into a gang. He said, don't listen to these fools. Do you want to keep the promise you made to your mom and your dad? I said, yeah, Muhammad, I do. He said, then let me tell you what prison is really going to be like. He told me the first thing you need to understand about prison. Prison is all about race. Race runs the whole institution inside the prison, he said. Because in a prison, everybody breaks off in their own racial group. It's very primitive in there, very tribalized in prison. That's what he's telling me. He said the white gangs are going to get the first dips on you because you're white. The Aryan Brotherhood, the Aryan Circle, the White Knights, the Woods. You fight the white gangs first. If you survive the white gangs, you fight the black gangs. If you survive the black gangs, you'll earn the right to walk alone. And he's telling me things like, you don't have to win all your fights, but you do have to fight all your fights. Some days you win, some days you lose. Don't worry about the losses. Get up and keep fighting. And he sees that I'm struggling with what he's telling me. I'm looking back at this guy like a deer in headlights, right? All this violence and terror going into. And that's when he said, Wes, let me break it down for you a different way. He said, I want you to imagine prison as a pot of boiling water. He said, now anything we put into a pot of boiling water will be changed by the heat and the pressure inside that pot. He said, I'm going to put 3 things in this pot of boiling water, and watch how they change. A carrot, an egg, and a coffee bean. So y'all, here's where I first heard the story of the coffee bean. It's the summer of 2009 in Dallas County Jail. It's 10 years before John Gordon and I write a best-selling book called The Coffee Bean in 2019. And so he walks me through it. If I put a carrot in a pot of boiling water, he said, what happens to the carrot? I'm like, the carrot's going to turn soft. He said, that's right, but the carrot goes in the water hard and firm. But the water, the prison, turns the hard carrot soft, mushy, weak. He said, the egg. What happens to the egg in the boiling water? I'm like, the egg is going to turn hard, like a hard-boiled egg. He said, that's right. The egg has a shell that protects on the outside. But inside that shell, that soft liquid core, the yolk, the heart, can become hardened. He said, now, if your heart becomes hardened, you become incapable of giving or receiving love. He said, if you're incapable of giving or receiving love, you've become institutionalized and you don't come back as someone your parents recognize. Then he asked me the question, Jason. He said, what about the coffee bean? He said, what happened to the coffee bean in the pot of boiling water? And y'all, I didn't have an answer for Muhammad on that one. I didn't know what happened to a coffee bean in a pot of boiling water. And that's when Muhammad, a man who looks nothing like me, a man who doesn't come from the same America that I came from, y'all, a man who doesn't believe the same things I believe in life. This is a black Muslim man from the streets of Dallas. I'm this white middle-class Catholic guy from a little town called Port Arthur. But this man who's so different than me, he's going to share with me one of the most important and transformational messages I've ever received in my life. And the moral of that is this, if you ever shut yourself off to other people because of their differences, different race, gender, ethnicity, different religion, opinions, political views, if you close yourself off to people because of their differences, you could miss some of the most important messengers and some of the best friendships in this life. Because Muhammad told me that day, he said, if I put a coffee bean in that pot of boiling water we call prison, he said, now you got to change the name of the water to coffee. Because he said the coffee bean, the smallest of the three things, small like you, has the power to change the entire atmosphere inside that pot because the power is inside the coffee bean, just like the power is inside of you. And he told me, he said, everything else in life is changed by the water supply. Carrots are changed by the water, eggs are changed by the water, but not a coffee bean. He said the coffee bean is the only thing that will change the water because it's the change agent. So the thermostat.
This is where the synergy is.
Yes,
we connect in the first place. Is that this idea that the coffee bean again, or if we just give in to the reactionary kind of world that we live in each day, which all of us as human beings, by the way, are, and tempted to be pulled in those directions, then we get in that thermometer mode, or we start operating outside of that person that we're really trying to be. And the coffee bean or the thermostat is that shifting to, well, what is it I'm trying to be about with the people around me? What is that temperature that I try to set? What do I want this water to be changed into? And so the metaphors work.
Yeah.
Where I want to take us into is then, so for you personally, so what does that look like for you to not only conceptually believe in this idea, just like me conceptually believe in this idea of the thermostat, to what is it that you do as habits? Last year sitting in this seat, I had James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, great dude and friend. He, taking these concepts and saying, but what are the habits that you then have to practice each day to stay focused on being that coffee bean and not the carrot or the egg?
Yeah, very good question. And, to bring James into it, James Clear, the new book I just wrote, 6 Dimes and a Nickel, the first sentence of the book is a question I first heard posed by James Clear.
Oh, nice.
And the question was this: if someone took control of your life tomorrow, what's the first thing they would change? Deep question, right? When I saw James Clear post that one day, I'm like, wow, that's deep. If someone took control of your life tomorrow, what's the first thing they would change? The idea is that you probably know the answer to that question. And then the question really becomes, why have you not already made that change yourself? And I think the reason why we hold back from change is because change can be difficult. Change can be scary. Change takes us outside that place called the comfort zone. But that's a great place to navigate towards, outside that comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because that's where growth takes place. Me going into a maximum security level 5 prison was definitely getting outside my comfort zone. It was not on my bingo card growing up, right? I never expected to walk into a level 5 prison. But once I got into prison, and after it took me about 2 months to establish myself, violence is a very big, it's the only language everybody speaks in prison. If someone speaks it to you or you speak it to them, but you have to become fluent in violence. But once you understand that and you can navigate that, the world changes, it shifted. And after a few months in prison, when the violence was finally over, I had to start working on myself to become that coffee bean. And I started having to establish rules. I think rules are important in our life because they give us structure and they give us guidance. I knew that if I was going to change this pot of boiling water into a pot of coffee, I had to get the buy-in from the people around me, right? The inmates. The inmate class, who I have not a lot in common with, man. We didn't come from the same America, most of us. I mean, there's really 5 variables that really determine who goes to prison in America. Poverty, lack of an education, lack of a family, substance abuse, race. I mean, these are the big things.
The pot of boiling water or the temperature of the environment that they're in.
So I'm in this environment, and I live with lifers. It's the most hopeless place in prison there is. Hope is a very important factor in life. But I've got to get these guys to buy in. And I learned about this thing called servant leadership when I was in prison. Servant leadership is the secret to life, y'all. It's about helping other people reach their goals in life, helping to raise other people to a different station of life. Because when we help other people grow, we grow too. So when I first learned about servant leadership, I was like, this is the key. This is it. That's how I'm going to change this place. I had to figure out a way to serve the guys around me. And it wasn't really clear to me at first how I was going to do that, but it came to me. I had a very privileged life, Jason. I had a bachelor's degree when I went to prison. Most of the guys I'm locked up with, their education stopped somewhere in junior high, maybe early high school. So I was like, that's it. I'll transfer my education to these men around me. So I opened a free tutoring service. So I started teaching guys how to read and write. I get them ready for the GED test. So if they ever got out of prison one day, they'd be a better husband or better father. And once I started teaching these guys how to serve, they understood the purpose was to serve each other. Guys would ask me, how do I pay you for these tutoring classes? And I tell them, don't pay it back, pay it forward, And that's when the prison started to change. And they would come to me for guidance, like, if we're going to do this, what's the structure we need to live by? Well, one of the first rules about being a coffee bean is your body language. Your body language is powerful, Jason. And Muhammad told me about this. He said, every room you walk into, you either infect that room with negative energy or you affect the room with positive energy. The thermostat again.
The thermostat. You breathe oxygen in the room or you take oxygen from the room.
But he goes further too. Muhammad tells me, he said, whatever kind of energy you bring in, you get it back. It's the law of attraction, right? So he's telling me, you're going to have to change the energy around you in a very negative place, but it comes from within you. So positive body language. Your smile is powerful. When people see you smile, they smile back. And I would teach these guys about this. And at first, they didn't buy into it, man. It's a very negative environment. But eventually, they saw the effects of positive body language. So it's a very big deal. And your body language is important, too, because in life, everything we do is about relationships. Relationships are everything. And sometimes you're going to sit across from somebody you want to create a relationship with, and that person may have a preset bias against you or what you do. And maybe it's someone that once worked for the company you work for. Maybe they're not even there anymore because they were so bad. Or maybe it's just somebody that works in the same industry you work in. But you've got to build a bridge and a gap from a place of less than zero sometimes. I'm an ex-con. How many ex-cons that have come before me have burned the bridge to the ground? A lot, brother. A lot. You know how hard it was to get to this stage today? So I tell people all the time, your body language is a great way to break the ice, bridge the gap.
But before we dive into that topic, let's take a break. Let's pause for a second, and we'll be right back. Many teams and organizations right now are realizing that they need to do both. They need to engage the minds and hearts of their people in person, where everyone in the room can experience the energy of congregating together and find clarity for the road ahead. And they also need to continue to find ways to engage the minds and hearts of their people virtually, with those who are working remotely or at a distance. So, if you are in the process of planning your next team meeting, company all-hands event, conference or culture summit, and are looking for support with a powerful keynote speech, facilitated team conversations that are the currency for change, or deeper development on leadership mindset and an intentional strategy for the culture you're trying to create, I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon. I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com.
From a place of less than zero sometimes. I'm an ex-con. How many ex-cons that have come before me have burned the bridge to the ground? A lot, brother. A lot. You know how hard it was to get to this stage today? So I tell people all the time, your body language is a great way to break the ice, bridge the gap between people. Another rule that I practice every day is, first of all, we got to take care of ourselves. And I think that's in 3 different areas every single day. We must work out spiritually, mentally, and physically. Every day it is our responsibilities to work out our mind, our body, and your soul. Because here's the truth about life. You can't give what you don't have. And if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And Jason, if you don't think you have a little time for self-care, a little self-love, look at your screen time reports. Those things are scary, y'all.
Don't look at my screen time reports.
And look, I'm not throwing stones at you. I got the same problem with this phone in my pocket. These things are sucking the life out of us. We're on our phones 8 hours a day now.
No, many of the teams and organizations that I support, we often, when we're looking at our own leadership patterns in the way that we move in and out of every day, we start to look at that. And I oftentimes have them do a little audit of themselves. And we talk about the Eisenhower matrix of what we're giving our focus and our attention to. And we start to look at it and say, are we actually busy or are we effective?
Yeah.
And that drastic, when we are willing to look ourselves in the mirror and we're able to say, maybe there are some adjustments to make to the thermostat, that oftentimes the screen time might be the most obvious one right in front of us. But really, as we kind of re-engineer and look at the way that we invest our time and attention, there are plenty of opportunities to adjust.
Oh, yeah. Well, and this is the thing. It's about your time at this point. Because, y'all, time, it's the most precious resource there is. Once this stuff is gone, it's gone for good. Take it from a guy that's done time, man. This stuff, all the money in the world can't buy a second back of this stuff. I mean, what are you spending your time on? And you've got to really evaluate yourself on that.
That's why I talk about investing time rather than just spending it.
Yeah,
that we're investing our time right now here together. And that this ought to be an investment of who is it that I'm hoping to be and why I'm even chose to be here, and what is our investment in each other. And what we find is the teams and organizations and leaders that operate that way, and they start to think of it that their role as a servant leader is to not bark out orders and coerce people from above, but serve from the bottom of the pyramid, and that their job is to actually invest in others.
Yeah, oh yeah. This is servant leadership.
That's servant leadership.
Cultures are created from the top down, right? The leader is at the top, but the culture has to be bought in from the top.
And I would say bottom up. So the language I would bring to it is we flip that pyramid upside down, and even if you are the head coach, the CEO, the head honcho, the czar of the world, you're actually, even if you are at the top of the hierarchy organizational chart at the top, you're actually at the bottom. Because you start to see yourself that my role to lead is actually to serve. And so they may be at the top of the organizational chart, but in their own mind and more importantly in their own heart, they see themselves at the bottom, and that their job is to start with them, to be that thermostat, to be the first one to breathe oxygen into it and be the coffee bean. But I've got to be able to coach and develop people from the ground up rather than the top down.
Yeah, culture has to be bought in from the bottom up. It has to, everybody's got to buy into this culture. And I learned a lot about, the first person I learned about servant leadership from was this guy named Joe Tortorice. Joe Tortorice would come into the prison every Monday night and fellowship with us. These Christian men would come in and spend time with us in prison. And nobody wanted to be with prisoners, man. Except for our families. But these guys would voluntarily come into a prison. And Joe could have been anywhere he wanted to be in life. Joe had a private jet, man. Joe had everything going in life. And so I asked Joe, I said, Joe, tell me your story. He always talked about servant leadership. I said, tell me your story. So Joe graduated college in 1972 from Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Moves back to Beaumont, Texas, marries his high school sweetheart, starts his family. And in 1976, he opens up his first sandwich shop. He wanted to have a sandwich shop all his life. And so in 1976, he opens up a little sandwich shop, has 4 employees in one store. Joe said by the mid-90s, Jason's Delis were popping up everywhere, man.
Okay.
So Joe's the guy that started, you have Jason's Deli out here?
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah. So this is the guy that started Jason's Deli. And he said by the mid-'90s, Jason's Delis were everywhere, man. And he said money was coming in hand over fist. He said, but the problem was I was miserable. And he said my employees were miserable. Everybody was miserable, but we're swimming in dough. And he thought, man, I thought money was supposed to buy this happiness, right? Yeah. He didn't understand it. He couldn't fix the problem. So he goes to a business symposium in 1996 at Texas A&M. The speaker that day is a guy named David Glass. Now, David Glass was the first CEO of Walmart. He's the guy that Sam Walton handpicked to take over when Walton steps down. And David Glass gave a presentation that day in 1996 called Servant Leadership. And Joe's sitting here listening to David Glass say, servant leadership is helping other people reach their goals, helping to raise other people to a different station of life, because when we help other people grow, we grow too. Yep. So Joe realized, I have not been a very good leader. Joe thought a leader was someone that watches the servants work, and a servant was someone that carries the towel, they sweep the floor. Yep. Joe realized he hadn't been a very good leader. He had the triangle inverse, right?
That's right.
So he flipped it. He goes back to Beaumont. He's a chairman of the board of Jason's Deli. He said, all right, from here on out, we're changing what we're doing. We're giving our employees better benefits, better wages. We're raising the money that they get. And everybody thought Joe lost his mind because all that money they were swimming in starts shrinking now. But what happened at Jason's Deli is become something that business schools study now. You can go into a Jason's Deli anywhere in America. Joe would always challenge people to this. Go to the counter, ask for the manager on duty, ask the manager on duty who the longest serving employee is at Jason's Deli. The numbers will blow your mind. It's 18 years, 25 years, 30 years. I met a guy that's worked at Jason's Deli for 40 years. 40 years at a sandwich shop, Jason. But they're not going to work at a sandwich shop. They're going for a family environment. They become part of something bigger than them because Joe taught them how to serve. And that's what Jason's Deli did. That's what flipped it around for Jason's Deli. And Jason's Deli has never been more successful. And they're also one of the people that pays their employees the best wages too.
How we think about leadership matters.
Yeah.
And what are we here to do? And is it about a transaction or is it about a transformational culture that we're trying to create? And, Howard would tell you that at their pivotal times in the rise of Starbucks, that they made some very intentional, clear decisions about, how we extend benefits to hourly employees and strategic things they did that cost the company more money, but were in alignment with the values and what they were trying to create. And that, much like what you're saying at Jason's Deli, became a huge part of the culture that then they created because it was different, but it was clear what they were trying to create. I'm interested, you heard me say earlier some of the stats that throughout, Gallup has identified this idea, which some of this language is your story. But they say that what followers want in a leader today more than ever is that they want hope. They want leaders that they can trust. They recognize that organizations need this kind of resilience over time. So those caring connections are important. Where do you see hope and trust, resilience? Where do you see this playing out in teams and organizations in the world today?
You ever seen the movie Shawshank Redemption?
Yes, you're the modern day Shawshank.
Yeah, it was actually the prison was here in Ohio, right?
Yeah, it's in Mansfield.
Mansfield. So Shawshank was about hope, y'all. That was the whole theme of Shawshank. I didn't understand Shawshank when I first saw it in '94.
Oh, it's my favorite movie.
So we graduated the same. You graduated high school in '94?
I did.
Yes, me too.
Look
so
at that. Here
when
we
I
go.
saw Shawshank the first time, I'm a college freshman. I'm playing quarterback, and I don't even know. That's a cool prison break story. I didn't understand Shawshank until when I got out of prison 30 years later. I'm sitting with my dad. I lived with my parents when I first got out of prison. Like, y'all, for the first 2 years I was out of prison, I lived in my parents' spare bedroom.
You went from prison to prison.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, but it's a better prison. But
it's a better prison.
Like, I live in my parents' spare bedroom. I'm on parole for the rest of my life. I make minimum wage. And, it's like not the best Tinder profile, right? But my dad recorded every prison movie that's ever been on TV. When I got home from prison, I didn't know that's what we were going to do. We're going to watch prison movies.
You're going to watch prison movies.
He wanted to know who gets it right? So who better to tell him than a guy that lived in prison? So all these movies, there's all pieces in movies that got it right, but Shawshank was the one movie above all the other movies that actually got prison right, because prison is a hopeless place. That's why prisons are so dangerous, because when you have a void of hope, negativity, evil, darkness fills the void. And you don't have to be in a physical prison to be a world with no hope. Look around America right now. There's a lot of people without hope out there. And I would say that
I think that's one of the things we see in organizations too. Again, back to that engagement piece of it, is when you start to see cultures and organizations and teams where you can see the people beginning to disengage. Many, if we follow the thread back, you start to see, well, they're starting to lose hope in that direction. That this talk about it being more than a job is really just a facade. It's just a job. And when we start to lose that hope that it is more than that, which again, research has backed up and told us for decades that we want more than that. When we start to lose that, all of a sudden we start to become disengaged, which means we don't trust our people, which means we don't trust the direction we're going. And we fill it, that void, with that negativity and all the stuff that you're talking about.
Well, that's when you look at the United States of America. There's a leadership vacuum because when you don't have leadership that is authentic, caring, humble, serving, they don't have empathy. These are things that you look for in a leader. And if you don't have a leader that has those qualities, then you will disengage and lose hope because a leader is selfless, but when you find the leader that's selfish, that's a problem because, and they get reins of everything, that's when the world starts losing hope. But in Shawshank, Andy Dufresne, the movie wasn't even about Andy. I thought the movie was about Andy. The movie's really about Red.
Yeah, it is about Red.
Because Red has no hope. Morgan Freeman's character, Red, he has no hope. I mean, the first time you meet him, he gets denied parole. All the men in Shawshank have no hope. Brooks, the old man that got out, he did 50 years in prison, lasted 2 weeks in the free world, hung himself. Andy represented hope in the movie. It was a very spiritual movie because Andy represented the hope. And when Red finally got out, we don't know if Red's going to make it, but he gets the letter from Andy under that rock wall that Andy told him to go to. And in that letter, Andy said, Red, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. If you go back and watch the last scene of Shawshank Redemption, just the very last scene, remember that last scene on that beach in Mexico?
Oh, yeah.
Zihuatanejo, Mexico.
Zihuatanejo.
Yeah. That's what kept Andy Dufresne alive for 19 years. In the darkest of times, the worst of places, Andy envisioned himself on that beach one day, and we all have the power to do that in dark times. We all have the power to see ourselves in a better place succeeding, but when we lose hope, we can't get that vision back anymore. But when we have this hope, we can see ourselves past the dark times and in a better place. That's why hope is so important. You go back and watch the last scene, the dialogue of Red in the last minute tells the whole story. Every single sentence that Red says in his last minute of dialogue starts off with the same two words, I hope.
I hope.
He tells you, I hope I make it across the border. I hope I see my friend again so I can shake his hand. I hope the Pacific is as blue as it was in my dreams. I hope. That's a statement at the end of the movie that he makes. I hope. Hope is essential in life, but it's not a strategy in life, right? That's right. We hear this all the time. There are catchphrases. Grit, hustle, determination. I think grit is... What I think of when I hear the word grit is someone that looks at the obstacle in front of them and says, all right, I see that this obstacle is in there, it's big, but there's got to be an opportunity somewhere in this obstacle, right? And it's on the other side of it. So if I'm going to get to that opportunity, I have to go through that obstacle in front of me. That's what I think people that are gritty do. People that are gritty go through the obstacle in front of them. They go through the adversity in life. In every situation of adversity in life, there's always an opportunity. And that was my mindset in prison. I'm going to get up every day and I'm going to work on myself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'll become the best version of me. And when the opportunities come, I'm going to take them. 2015 in prison. I've been in prison 7 years, 3 months. I work in the chapel. I've turned it around. I became a good guy, became a model inmate. I became a coffee bean. And the parole board comes to see me. Now, I know I'm up for parole in 2015, y'all, but I don't think I'm going to make the first parole. No one makes the first parole, not on a life sentence. But the lady from parole brought me in and interviewed me, and she has my criminal file, but she won't even open the file. She's not interested in what's in that file. The biggest interview of my life, man. And she said, listen, I've been doing this parole thing a long time. This could be the most spectacular fall from grace I've ever seen. To go from where you were in life to have a life sentence in prison, she said, it's astonishing. Because you had it all. but you threw it all away. You became a drug addict, you became a criminal, you became a thief. A jury in Dallas gave you life in prison for the things you did. But instead of letting that life sentence define you, you changed yourself inside this prison. She said, but what got our attention? And she smiled. The reason why we're here today is you didn't just change yourself inside this prison. You changed the entire prison around you. One man changed the entire prison, the thermostat, right?
I love it.
She said, so look, I've got one question for you. It's a one-question test. The answer to the question is going to determine whether or not you go home or you stay in prison. She said, but the answer to my question is not in the file about the guy who committed all those crimes. The file she won't even open. Here was her question. She said, if you could be remembered for being anything in life, anything at all, she said, tell me what that one thing would be, but give it to me in just one word. Go. Jason, I didn't have to think about that answer. I knew the answer because I've been living my answer, being the thermostat the whole time I was in prison. And I fired her answer back to her immediately. And I said, useful. I said, I just want to be useful again. Because like what Howard said, we all want to be useful. Every human being wants to have value, y'all. I've lived in a maximum security level 5 prison, and I've lived out here in the free world, and I'm going to tell you, every single person I've ever met in life wants the same 2 things out of life that Howard was talking about. Human beings want to belong, and we want to be loved. And when those 2 things are met, the human spirit is capable of anything. And that's what I told that lady that day. And like, I found a way in that environment to make everybody feel like they belong, they were loved. Another thing human beings want, we want to be heard. Everybody wants to feel like they've been heard, man. And when we feel like we've been heard, we feel like we're part of something bigger than we're on a team now. And when you're on a team, you'll do things you wouldn't normally do because the team is what you're playing for. You're not just playing this game for you anymore. You're on a team. You belong to something. You'll show up more. You'll show up earlier. You'll stay later. And that's what I told that lady today. I said, ma'am, I just want to be useful again. And I can be useful inside this prison, or I can be useful in the free world, finding more coffee beans.
To wrap up this part of it, I want to just say this, that when we talk about grit, the way we talk about grit is being able to have courage in a moment when we are faced with challenges. Do I have the grit to kind of hang in there and withstand the pressure,
Yeah.
right? And then the resilience comes from the process over time that beyond that individual moment, am I going to be resilient enough to keep showing up?
Yeah.
And the challenge or obstacle I might be facing, part of positive leadership, servant leadership, isn't Pollyannic in the sense that, oh, the challenge I'm facing, I'm going to pretend like it's not there, to just be resilient and move through it. It's acknowledging it, as Howard said earlier, naming it, and still believing in a future that you can be a part of creating. And so the coffee bean is that hope and that belief, but that resilience to keep showing up.
Yeah.
And that the teams that you can see where they feel that and know that and experience that with their leaders, and then see that, feel that, and experience with the people around them, those are the teams that end up being the most connected.
Yeah.
Those are the cultures that people celebrate.
And they always, like, the best cultures and best teams, and I've got to speak to all of them, man. I mean, but they control the controllables, They don't waste time on things they can't impact,
Yep.
And in prison and in my life out here, there's really 4 things I figured out I can control in life. And I learned it from the Serenity Prayer, this beautiful prayer we pray in AA. I don't speak for AA, but that's my program recovery I'm in. But you control what you think, what you say, what you feel, and what you do. These are the things you control, and they're all inside you. And if you don't control anything else, those are the things you have control over. So if you can focus on those 4 things, try to stay focused in that lane, that's when life takes off, because you're really impacting your life in a way now, because we waste time a lot of times trying to focus on things we have no control over.
That's right.
Once that time is gone, it's gone for good. An example of a team, a culture that does this really well, and I know it's going to sound crazy because they're not doing great right now, is Clemson. My buddy Dabo Swinney at Clemson. Dabo Swinney was the first coach to ever bring me in and speak to a football team, a big football team. But Dabo's got this culture, Clemson, and this culture, they love each other. They serve each other. They care for each other. They believe in each other. this culture is all about family over there. You go to Clemson, you see the environment in there. There's no other college football program in America like it, man. This culture is incredible. And I know they're not doing really well right now, but they've got such a good culture, they'll bounce back because you're going to have down years. You may have down multiple years, but your culture is the one thing that can bring you back from the brink of all that stuff because you just got to believe. Another team that does it really well, the Kansas City Chiefs. Andy Reid's a good friend of mine. Andy Reid brings me to talk to his team. The Chiefs, like whether you love them or hate them, they're in the championship game every year, right? Either it's the AFC Championship or it's Super Bowl. They're there every year. What do the Chiefs do different that nobody else does? So first of all, the Chiefs have a very good coach. We can agree Andy Reid is a great coach.
No doubt.
Been around the guy. You spend 5 minutes with him, you want to run through a wall. You see why guys play from the way they do. Andy's a great coach. There's no debating that. But the Chiefs aren't great just because Andy's a great coach. The Chiefs are great because the players on that team carry his culture when he's not around, right? They carry his culture when he's not around. For example, in the Chiefs,
there's clarity on who they're trying to be, how they do what they do, and it is anchored by their players when he's not in the room.
Absolutely. And that means they hold each other accountable to a high standard, a standard that they have set. That locker room has a standard in it. And if you aren't playing to the standard of the Chiefs, man, somebody's going to come up to you, one of the players, and say, hey, man, look, we don't do that here. Yep. We play at a higher standard. Or maybe it's that conversation. Hey, man, I think you're better than what you're doing right now. I think you got a lot more to give, and you're not giving it your all. I need you to give it your all. We're all counting on you.
Yep.
That's the standard the Chiefs have, man. They don't play around with that. But Andy can't be everywhere all the time. But his culture he's created can be because they got the buy-in from the bottom up.
Yep.
And there's the thing about confidence, all these teams and all these organizations that do it really well, they have confidence. And they understand that confidence comes from the promises you keep to yourself. Confidence starts with little promises that you keep, and you can build bigger on that. But if you don't keep a promise to yourself, you won't keep a promise or like something like that to anybody else. So you got to have confidence. Confidence is a thing, but it comes from within you.
I love this. This is awesome. I'm sensing we probably need a break here coming up here soon. But before we do that, Damon's going to stick around with us for a little bit today too. So we got some more to be continued on this. But first, I want to say before I thank Damon for his time and being here with us and sharing his spirit. Let me introduce the coffee bean to another coffee bean.
Hey, Howard.
Hey, Howard.
David, good to see you again.
Good to see you, brother. How's it going, man?
Good to see you. I'm still here, 81. I'm still ticking.
You're looking great, man.
Hey, Howard, what if anything, if you just had one thing that you just heard that jumped out to you, what Damon was talking about, I'm interested where your brain went.
Well, first of all, thank you, Damon. I needed you today. And,
oh, man.
And it made me aware of someplace I am. So my whole life I've dealt with some kind of anxiety or depression. It goes back, and I didn't realize it, but it goes back to grade school years and all the way through. Now, when I was working and traveling all the time, you kind of shove things aside. Well, when I retired, I really struggled. And then I worked my way through it, and then all of a sudden, I got into my late 70s, and I turned 80 over a year ago. And then for some reason, that 80 hit me, and I went into a deep cycle of depression, and I struggled to get out of it. And I realized as I'm listening to you, right, and I've been working on it, I realized as I'm listening to you, right, it was how I was thinking about myself. And I believe that, the key in life is to grow yourself. Servant leadership isn't a leadership model, it's a life model. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, even though you know these things, you forget them. No matter how many self-help books I've read, no matter how many times I hear people speak, sometimes I just forget where I'm at.
Because we have an effing problem, Howard. We got an effing problem.
Yeah.
That we talk about. We got an effing problem and we forget. We forget. That's right.
And so I'm in that process of working through it again, and that's what I want to do. And you have reminded me today that just because I'm 81 doesn't mean that my greater purpose in life still doesn't have reason and merit to continue on with. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Howard. I appreciate that, brother. You made my day with that. It's good to talk to you again. Hey, Jason, one last thing.
Yeah.
The first question you asked me, right?
Yeah.
What is something we're going to learn about you today that we don't already know?
Yeah.
All right. So y'all remember the answer to that question was, right, I found out what the true purpose of the coffee bean was. So is anybody wondering what happened to Muhammad at this point? The guy that told me the story of the coffee bean, right? So I get out of prison on November 16th, 2015, all right? So almost exactly 10 years ago from the day I walked out of prison. Now, I'm not a free man. You're not looking at a free man in front of you. I got a little more time left on parole. I'm on parole in Texas until the year 2073. 48 more years. Just turned 50, halfway there, you know?
Yeah. So you're by the way, like every month, right? You have to mark out your calendar and you got to get with your parole.
Oh, yeah, my parole.
You got to show them where you're going.
She has to prove all my travel, everything I do. They have a short leash on me in Texas. Every month I got to pee in a cup. I can't fail a drug. If I fail a drug test, I go back to prison. I'm on a substance abuse parole program. It's a very strict parole program, and I'm just like any other parolee in Texas. So I got to do this until I get to do this until 2073. Every month when I go to parole, I take a picture of myself from the parole office and I'll post it on social media with a big smile on my face. And people sometimes are like, man, how can you be smiling? You're on parole for life. I'm like, I didn't wake up in a prison today. Perspective is everything, y'all. Position determines perspective. Where you've been and the things you've seen determine the world around you, right? So I've got this great perspective on life. And this coffee bean thing, you know, I knew when I got out of prison, I had to go find Muhammad. It was like the first thing in my mind when I got out in 2015. So I go back to Dallas County Jail. I said, I'm trying to find my friend Muhammad. Well, it turns out Muhammad's not his real name. It's a Muslim name. When a person converts to Islam, they get rid of their real name. It's a Muslim name. Kind of like Cassius Clay becomes Muhammad Ali, right? So I can't find him. I don't have his vital information. So I got to hope that one day he finds me. 3 years ago, I get a letter from an inmate in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Jason, I get a lot of inmate mail now. Men and women all over the American prison system, they find me, they write me letters because I am Andy Dufresne to them. I am hope to them. Yeah. And I love these letters. But this letter had one sentence. No return address, one sentence. It said, find James Lynn Baker and you find Muhammad. 7 years I waited for one clue. I go back to Dallas, I get one lawyer, we get a private investigator. The first thing the PI finds is criminal record. Matched everything he told me county jail, in and out of prison his entire life. Had him in jail when I was there in 2009. So I know it's my friend. All we have to do now is find my friend's current address. But we never could find his current address because James Lynn Baker II, Muhammad, died of an opiate overdose in Dallas, Texas on May 9, 2017. He's been dead for over 8 years now. So I told my lawyer that day, I said, listen, man, I owe my life to this guy. And if he's dead, then I need to go find his family. I got to tell his family what he did in my life. I need to honor my friend, and his family can help me do it. Man, you should have seen my lawyer's face. You ever dealt with lawyers? They're very risk-averse people. My lawyer's like, go find his family. He said, look where part of Dallas this guy comes from, man. We can't go there in the daytime. How are we going to find his family? I said, man, find a brave PI. Let's go find his family. And he came from a very dynamic family. But you know what I found out about addiction? Addiction doesn't care who you are, where you come from. Addiction doesn't discriminate. And addiction touches everybody in this country. Whether you are the addict, the friend of an addict, the victim of an addict, the family of an addict, or the taxpayer, you're all touched by addiction in this country, one way or another. He's got 3 living sisters, Visha, Vonsil, and Vanessa. They're all in their 70s. They live in Dallas. I called these ladies up one night. I told them the story about the time I met their brother in Dallas County Jail, the message he gave me, and what I was able to do that message both in prison and out of prison. And what I was met with these sisters shocked me. They're like, Damon, the man you're describing as our brother is not our brother. Our brother was a loser. He was a drunk. He was a drug addict. He would get out of prison and come live with us. He'd steal from us, and then he'd go back to prison. It was a vicious cycle, living with this guy that had so much potential in life, but he could never get past his addiction. There's a lot of anger there. And I told the sisters, I said, listen, go with me on this. I said, I think I've seen the power of the message of the coffee bean and what it can do, not just in my life, but the lives around me. I think we can change the way the world sees your brother. I think we can change the way you see your brother now. I said, let's start a scholarship in his name. We'll call it the James Lynn Baker II Be a Coffee Bean Scholarship. I'll fund it. Every year for the rest of my life, I'll put $10,000 into a trust, and every year your family picks the winner. So that every year one little boy or one little girl that grows up in that old neighborhood, they get out. They get a better chance at life through education because 2 guys meet up in the county jail. And so the sisters took me up on it, and they've been picking scholarship winners. And I gradually started seeing how the sisters, when they talk about their brother, their back is ramrod straight,
Yeah.
So every 4 months, I graduated class in the Texas prison system. The parole board, who owns me till 2073, asked me 4 years ago during COVID, can you create a curriculum that teaches men and women how to think like you in prison? Because you are the example that it works. The coffee bean has to be in there. And so I'm like, yeah, so I did it. And every 4 months, we graduated class from the Change Agent Prison curriculum. This past Monday, I got to bring the sisters in to see what his message has done in that prison.
Oh, it's amazing.
These sisters were in tears, man. And they came up to me after the graduation, and they started talking about how much pride they have in their brother, how much they love their brother, and that their brother's example is this shining thing that's changed the entire world. And they think it's going to change the entire world. They've certainly seen some changes already. But here's what I found out about the coffee bean. James Lynn Baker II, Muhammad, didn't just give me the coffee bean so I could become a redeemed man. And by every metric, y'all, I'm a redeemed man. I'm a husband. I'm a stepfather. I'm sober. I'm a philanthropist. I'm an entrepreneur, college professor. I went back to school, got a master's in criminal justice, and started teaching it. For 3 years, I taught at University of Houston. I taught a class called Prisons in America. Like, I'm the only professor on earth to teach a prison class who lived in prison.
Yeah.
By every metric, I'm a redeemed man. But he didn't give me the message just so that I could redeem myself. He gave me the message so that I could come back and redeem him. Everybody deserves redemption in life. And some of us had a harder time getting to it than others. But these are the two qualities I want to leave y'all with that I think are the most important that we need in this world right now that we don't have a lot of. Humility and grace. Humility is when we are right size and we can be willing to listen to a difficult truth in life. That takes a lot to be humble. Grace is hard, y'all. Grace always costs the person giving it more than it costs the person who receives it. That's why it's so hard to find grace right now. But I believe in the United States of America, this company called the United States of Americas, it is a big, giant organization. I believe when in the United States of America, if we can find humility and grace, we can find the common ground and we can go change the culture in this country. I'm hopeful.
You have been a catalyst that has sent ripples well beyond you. And thanks for giving us some things that are going to be catalysts in this room that will help move us forward. Would you help thank the coffee bean,
Y'all,
Damon
thank
West?
y'all. Thank y'all. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using, and share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to you and your organization, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we are all ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.